Yeah, it's a big role, isn't it? And when you think about Jasprit Bumrah, you think, oh, look, he's probably played, 80 to 100 Test matches. It just seems like he's been a real stalwart of Indian cricket across three formats. The reality is he's played 40 Test matches, and that's a lot of cricket still, but it's not Rohit Sharma, and it's not Virat Kohli and other names that have played a lot more amongst the stalwarts of Indian cricket. My comment is, though, that he will, like Pat Cummins, lead with the ball. His one outing in Perth, he took 5 wickets in that cause, even though it was a losing cause. I think he's just got to lead from the front. I mean, the better he bowls, the better his team gets into a position of dominance. He can expose many players because of his immense talent. And from what I understand, not knowing Jasprit on the field as such, not even having played against Jasprit, but coming from a great friend and mentor of mine and MS Dhoni, is that he's got wonderful leadership qualities as well. In fact, he was touted by MS many years ago as a potential captain. So off the field, I've spent a large amount of time with Jasprit. He's intelligent, well organised, and constructive in his comments on the game, which to me reveals he's got good leadership instincts, and they will come to the fore, captaining a very excited and extremely optimistic team coming here after winning 3 times. This will be the third time they'll win in a row if they end up doing that this time. So lots to play for, and I know that he'll be up for it for sure. Yeah, you're right. I've never done, and it's probably leads me to some good homework ahead of the match on Friday. But just exactly how much both individual players are actually dismissed, caught behind, or in the slip cordon versus just caught. I know that Marnus Labuschagne, for example, his percentage of caught behinds is somewhere in that 30% range. Overall, he gets caught 60% of the time. So half of the catches for a talent, such as Marnus is caught behind. So yeah, it's a very important. I agree. It's a very important strategic fielding position, and that extends out to gully as well. Our last couple of summers, we've seen the emergence of one of Australia's great gully fieldsmen in Cam Green, who unfortunately won't be present during the series. But it makes a heck of a difference if you can, throw a fish net around catches that come to that cordon, and you have a catching percentage, in and around that kind of 9 out of 10 range, to the advancement of success on any venue across Australia. There's always going to be more pace and carry. And that may also mean that there's a little adjustment, as far as just the mindset of where you should stand, which is on the day something that you have to gauge, and it's always set up by the wicketkeeper, Rishabh Pant, and how he feels in a position where he knows that he can take the majority of the balls cleanly in and around kind of stomach height. And that sets then the precedence around, where the other cordon needs to stand. Yeah, I mentioned this before. I feel the thing as a broadcaster that I'm looking forward to the most across this 5-test match series is to see how the modern batsmen and the modern era kind of get over their hangover of playing short format cricket over the past 12 to 18 months. There hasn't been. I think India do have the advantage because they've played a little bit more Test match cricket at this stage than what Australia has. So for mine, seeing the way that, because I guess hitting boundaries is a great drug to batsmen. Once you get that feeling of hitting boundaries, it's a really important part of building confidence and building through your innings. But as the old adage says, you can't score runs from the change room. And when you think back to Indian batters in Australia that really, and I alluded to this point with Rahul Dravid and VVS Laxman as well, they just face so many balls. I mean, Pujara here in his 11 matches averaged 126 balls in innings. You know, that, and when you think about, you know, his success story here, averaging 47 with just under 1,000 runs, he just batted time. And you can't tell me that Rohit Sharma's either not it's not his fitness, it's not his skill set. You know, so ultimately it comes back to the challenge that all these batsmen will have through the series against world-class either pace or spin attacks, is to have the courage to be able to bat session by session, ball by ball, over by over, through the course of, you know, a 5-day window. And that's the modern athlete's great challenge. We go berserk on players that have all the style and charisma. Jake Fraser-McGurk is a great example of that in the short formats of the game. We love the fact that he hits, you know, these wonderful boundaries, but he doesn't hit anywhere near enough of those boundaries to be really a consistent contributor over time in the one-day format or even T20 format for that mind. You know, so you're judged on your only commodity as a batsman is runs, and the most successful run getters in this country tend to be those that bat a long time. And the most successful here, can I remind everyone, is Sachin Tendulkar, you know, who scored 1,800 runs in his 20 matches here at an average of 50-odd, 53, with 600s and 750s, right? So there's a almost shut case example of how a talent meets a more determined mindset. My favourite innings of Sachin Tendulkar's was the Sydney Test match, where he just refused to play a cover drive for almost 2 days to get 200 runs. It was a remarkable innings. And that's the sort of character that is required to get runs here in this country. Not someone that bats 30 balls, makes a glorious, you know, 52 runs, but doesn't make impact on the game because he's in the dressing room sipping soy lattes. Cricket is not in the business of producing robots. I mean, the players are the number one stakeholder of the IPL, and there is a lot riding on this super auction, and players inevitably will need to deal with that distraction, and those that do it better than others will have a competitive advantage. Even our commentary box at Channel 7 will have its work cut out with Justin Langer and Ricky Ponting, you know, at the helm of two franchises, Ricky, a new franchise. So I'll be making sure that our boys are well on track. Em, if you're still listening, I'll be doing the marching orders to the boys to make sure that they're focused on their job, which is commentating for Channel 7. Yes, are his stocks rising or are they falling is the question. And only Virat will be able to answer that because naturally there's got to be that hunger which Virat always brings to any kind of contest, and there's none bigger, right, throughout the course of now Test match cricket history. And he's on a side that's dominated Australia in their own backyard now for almost a decade, and that's an important factor and a place that he's worked really hard. A lot of his influence on the game can be seen not just with bat in hand, but also the belief in the contest, the belief in his own fitness levels and the influence that he's had on the Indian cricket team in terms of how he conducts himself on the field and off the field as well as custodian of our great game. So, you know, lots for Virat to play for. But as every athlete will say, as life gets more complicated and more layers come to it, there's always this great challenge and a tension between the now and the future, because the past actually means nothing at the start of a new series. And unfortunately, you know, he can't carry his immense performances from any season into this one because it's a different one. It's a new one. You know, he starts with his average of 0 and an aggregate of 0. We all know that he's capable of averaging beyond 50, and he's done so in this country in the past, second behind Sachin Tendulkar. But, gee, it's up to him. And I wish him all the best because, you know, in Australia, we want to see Virat Kohli against the best, arguably the best attack that Australian cricket has had in the history of the game, let alone, you know, just the summer ahead of us. Yeah, my take is that Dhruv Jurel is much more conditioned to our environment. He looks so comfortable against Australia in the unofficial test with some good solid performances. And look, I just feel like he will most certainly be the front runner. No discredit to Sarfraz, but I just think that technically he looks really solid. He also, the importance of confidence in these conditions as well, has hit the ground running in this country. And I sense, especially, you know, if there was, say, a Rohit Sharma at the helm and Virat Kohli was on fire with his own form, I think you could probably experiment a little bit more and go down the Sarfraz path. But considering that that's not the case, there is some questions over the batting lineup. I think a more certain Jurel will be front runner. I mean, that's the sort of 100 that Travis Head can produce. And he does so like Rishabh Pant in this beautiful balance between risk and reward, and finds a way to you know, really dominate. You know, so ultimately, yeah, he's just I don't know. He's kind of like the man for mine. The other day, I was asked a question about, you know, pick your four key players, and I went Bumrah counterpart Cummins, and Kohli counterpart Steve Smith. But on reflection, actually, you look at Travis Head, and he does seem to be, you know, a real man for a crisis in the middle order. Doesn't always score, but in reality seems to always make impact and impact in big matches. And he'll have his confidence high, because when you think back to that World Test Championship where he got 160 odd, the ODI final where he got a great 130 odd, you know, he finds a way to kind of really perform well against India, even in the T20 World Cup. You know, he got 76, I think it was. You know, so he finds a way against India.